Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I hope you can see the cameras on. So yeah, thank you Plug and Play for this invitation. DSV Panalpina is also very proud to be a participant in Plug and Play. So it's a great honor to have the opportunity to present today what we're doing on renewable hydrogen. So if you could go on to the next slide, please. Yes, I think during this morning we've heard very much on the technology side, you know, the sort of what's going on there, but we are coming from the demand side. And I just wanted to sort of set the scene why we are, you know, we're a logistics company, we transport goods, we don't own any vehicles, we're asset free. So why are we kind of involved in hydrogen and renewable hydrogen? Well, it's very simple. We have set ambitious CO2 reduction targets. So we want to, by 2030, which we call the climate decade, we want to reduce our emissions by 40% for our direct emissions, so our buildings, our company cars. But the very interesting scope and the most challenging one is scope 3, the indirect emissions, which is coming from our transport, from our subcontracted transport, by 30%. So this is really, I would say, the challenge of a logistics company, and we cannot say we're asset free, so we can step back, we don't need to do anything. Absolutely not. So this is where we are looking at how we can meet this target of scope 3, reducing by 30% our CO2. So how can we support the sustainability strategy? Again, coming in from sort of very three simplistic ways. One is report. Obviously, we have to have credible emission targets, which I've just presented, and we have to report on that data. So data is the most important part. Second of all, reducing. So how can we reduce our CO2? What action plans have we got? What projects do we have? That's the second part. And then collaboration. I think this platform today is a fantastic opportunity for collaboration. We need to collaborate with suppliers, with our customers, and also today I've seen already some great startup companies. Innovation is key because DSV cannot reduce its CO2 alone. It needs to be collaborating across the whole supply chain. Yes, so the challenge is how do we reduce these indirect emissions? And I'm not going to go into the detail here, but this is the sort of things we're doing for our customers. They're also asking, hey, DSV, report us your CO2. So we give them their CO2 of the cargo they've shipped with us. Then what can you do to reduce that? Obviously, the sort of obvious is the mode shift, going from air to sea, lower CO2. Optimal loading factors, ensuring we're really maximizing the container. Best routing in terms of CO2. Of course, carrier selection is something as well that's very important, that we're selecting the best in class carriers with our ships, with our airlines, and with our trucks. But the final piece, which is leading me on now to sort of the hydrogen renewable projects, is we must explore collaboration projects. This is key, and this is now leading into the innovation hydrogen renewable project we're doing. And on that note, I'd just like to give you a small video to explain what this is all about and how DSV is partnering up, please. Great. So yeah, that's sort of a nice introduction to this project. So basically, from my side, just on a high-level summary, the plans have now begun. This is led by Ørsted, based in Denmark, to build a giant green hydrogen factory plant in Copenhagen. So it's in Denmark, and it's a collaboration with Denmark companies. So the goal is, towards the end of the decade, the factory will produce green hydrogen in very large quantities from wind power that will be used to fuel ships, aircrafts, buses and trucks. And this is where DSV comes in on the demand side. And also to support, there's one thing to support the corporate companies, but it's also to support Denmark. They have very strict targets to reduce their CO2, and in fact they want to be carbon neutral by 2050. So this is really why we also do this project. So DSV is among many other key players and a partner to this project. So it's not just DSV, there's a whole consortium of key stakeholders that will make this project happen. So what's the journey towards reducing our emissions? So you saw on the video, there's a lot of companies there, Ørsted, SAS, Maersk, they're coming also from the sort of shipping line, SAS airplanes, and then Ørsted is really the sort of leading, if you like, project leader on this. And so we're exploring renewable energy alternatives to accelerate decarbonisation. So it's not to say it's only hydrogen. We're also looking at other innovation projects in DSV, but we strongly believe, being a Danish company, that we can also collaborate with this project. So as you've heard in many of the slides before, hydrogen is a very promising alternative fuel, and it's been calculated with this project that this could reduce 20% of transport emissions within Denmark. So it's a very powerful fuel when this is realized. So creating production facilities to renewable hydrogen cannot be done alone, and that's why, as mentioned, we have partnered with some key organizations on technology, on the electrolysis, the plants, and the fueling stations. So we all need to work together for this project. And it's a first partnership with companies that are taking leadership to reduce emissions in their sectors. So it's a very exciting partnership. And when fully scaled, it can deliver, as we saw in the video, more than 250,000 tons of sustainable fuel. So this is a very exciting target. Yeah, so what's our role? We are not in the sort of manufacturing, absolutely not. As said, we're demand. We're on the demand side of the project. We need to work to ensure that the setup works for our trucks and is competitive for customers and suppliers. So this is a cost, and this is something we're looking at. And we have Cardiff University, again, collaboration. We've partnered with them, where they are actually researching for us currently our trucking paths in Denmark. So what is the CO2 emissions currently of our trucks? How long are these trucks going? What is the weight of the cargo? So we're at the research phase, and then we'll be testing with trucks how this will work with hydrogen. We also are looking for commercial cooperations. We're welcoming suppliers. Obviously, we're asset free as well, so we're going to be looking at suppliers to support and test the hydrogen. And also, it's a huge advantage for customers to say, hey, we're using trucks that are with renewable hydrogen to reduce our CO2. We're identifying the truck fleet that we can be used. The infrastructure is very important where the fuel cells can be. And of course, pricing. This has come up a few times during this morning. This is absolutely key to try and get this pricing down and the demand to go up, that we can get a good competitive mark with fossil fuels. So we're also looking at legislation to support us and the local government in Denmark. So this is overall our role when it comes to the project. Next slide, please. So it's the three-staged approach, which is actually quite fast. By 2023, which is not long, the way time goes, we will have a 10 milliwatt electrolyzer built, which will be producing renewable hydrogen directly into the buses of Denmark and to the trucks. And this is where DSV will start to be using the fuel. Stage 2 is fully operational by 2027, increasing the electrolyzer to 250 megawatts, which will combine hydrogen to produce methanol for maritime transport, which is environmentally friendly, and renewable jet fuel, which is the e-kerosene for aviation. So then it comes into stage 3, 2030, the final target to upgrade the current electrolyzer to 1.3 gigawatts to have more than 250,000 tons, which will reduce Copenhagen Airport by 2027 by 30% CO2 by 2030. So high level, these are the stages of the project. We've seen some speakers this morning on electrolyzers, so perhaps this is something we can also talk about after, but this is the initial plans with this project. Next slide, please. So I won't go into the process because I think we've heard very well how this works, but it's just to say here that we are using wind power, and this is how DSV will be coming in on the left-hand side with the trucks, and the buses will be the Denmark community. So a process here that's in the, now being defined going forward. Next slide, please. So we're involved in two, if you like, hydrogen projects in summary. One is the one I've just mentioned, but in addition, we're on a smaller project as well with some other companies. So it's like the little sister of this project, where we're also looking at hydrogen. So there is two projects DSV's in, and it's absolutely exciting to be involved in this type of fuel and supporting Denmark's targets. Next slide. So I think in closing, I think this is what I always say in DSV. The partnerships in this project are special because we need to have all the different competencies. We cannot do this, Ørsted cannot do it on their own. So along the whole value chain, to get this project up and running, and the next step to innovate fuels to reduce CO2 emissions. And really, without collaboration, without these type of projects, and without innovation, it's really not possible for DSV to reduce our CO2 targets or for our customers. So I think this whole plug and play today is all about collaboration and partnerships. And this is where I also am a strong believer that we must collaborate for all of us to have these projects and reduce our CO2. So thank you for listening. We're now, in conclusion, we need to move towards sustainable and green logistics. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. That was great and very, very insightful.